Welcome to the PVN College podcast, where our goal is to grow students in the love and knowledge of Jesus Christ. In today's episode, we're going to talk about having a worship service during a pandemic. Our guest today is Janson Slaughter. Jansen is a junior at Berry College, double majoring in religion and psychology. He's in the Winship College program and also leads a campus ministry called Common Worship. Jansen, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Is it an honor? Does it feel different? Does it feel special?
It does feel very special.
I was about to say, just say yes.
It does.
Don't be like, no.
No, it doesn't.
So and we talked about this a little off camera, but religion and psychology.
Yes, sir.
So what do you want to do with that? What's the goal there?
Yeah, so I am hoping to do something with full-time ministry after college. So that's the goal.
That's awesome. And how does, I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, yeah.
But I think there are plenty of ways it does. I just want to hear you talk about it. Obviously the religion aspect makes sense.
Right.
How does psychology factor into that? Or is that just something you're interested in?
Yeah, I took a psychology class freshman year and was just immediately hooked to it. I fell in love with it. And so I just really like seeing how people think and how they deal with certain things. And so that's kind of why I chose that. And plus it made sense with hours and everything. So
yeah, there you go. So it's not a minor, you're double majoring.
Double majoring.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
How many hours is that? Or is there beyond number?
It probably is. I couldn't tell exactly, but it's enough to graduate. So.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's all you need.
Right, exactly.
So today we're talking about not just the pandemic, but we're talking about leading a worship service in a pandemic.
Right.
And you help lead a service at Berry College called Common Worship.
Yes, sir.
And it's at Berry College, which is a place that Berry College has taken a lot of precautions with COVID, right?
Right.
And this is just kind of a quick kind of precursor before we get into the actual service, but with the restrictions and regulations, just you're a student there as well, right? Yeah. So how are students doing with this? Are they just kind of, going along? Is there heightened anxiety? How has this kind of affected life on campus?
Yeah, I can speak for myself and probably the rest of Berry students. The anxiety level is definitely heightened up a little bit, which is kind of sad. But yeah, I would say just anxiety is went through the roof with school and all these other different things, and then COVID on top of that.
Right.
It just can be a lot. And so
yeah. Being a college student is stressful enough without the pandemic and the No, I completely get that. So any ideas or thoughts on why the anxiety level has heightened so much? I mean, what is it specifically that seems to be weighing students down? Or are there multiple factors?
I think it's honestly multiple factors. With the election just wrapping up and still honestly happening, and then racial injustice and the riots and everything that's happening in our world right now. It's just a lot to deal with.
It is. So, it's a super heavy time, man. Yeah. It really, really is. Well, we're thinking about you guys and praying for you guys as you walk through this.
Thank you.
December's almost here. You can
we're almost there.
Yeah. At least you can close the books. The rest of the stuff is still going on, but at least you can close the book. So there's a pandemic, there's election, racial injustice, all these other things. Specifically, I guess with the pandemic, but now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, we could plug in those other factors as well. But we'll just take these a couple questions at a time.
Sure.
Being a worship leader at Common Worship, how has worship changed with the restrictions going on, with the added level of anxiety?
Right.
So I guess let's talk about it, first of all, just from a strictly parameters and regulations first.
Yeah.
Has that affected how you guys do Common Worship?
It has a little bit. So actually we have our last Common Worship tonight. And so what they've made us do, the Berry administration has made us do, is we can only sing the last 20 minutes of the service.
You can only sing the last 20 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Is it an hour long?
It's about an hour long.
So what do you do for the first 40?
So we start off with a contemplative worship song. So where we just sing and everyone else just sits and listens and really soaks in the worship. And then we dive into the message, and then we go into the rest of the worship set. So you are mandated by Berry to sing, and I'm not poking fun. Sure,
I think that makes sense. I'm just for clarification. So you groups can only sing for the last 20 minutes of the service to minimize. What's the reasoning behind that? I
guess like because singing is like it's like the biggest spread for COVID.
Yeah.
And like when you're singing, like everything kind of sits in the room, and so they want it to be at the very end, like, and people have to leave exactly when it's over with.
I see.
So,
now, do you guys meet? Where do you guys meet? What does that look like?
So we meet literally everywhere on campus, like every building you can think of on campus, every outside space when it was the weather permitted. So we move around every week.
I guess that's my question. Is it outdoor, indoor? What does that look like?
So like we prefer outdoor, but when it gets cold, we have to move inside.
For sure. I got you. Where are you guys meeting tonight? Just curious.
The Cranert Ballroom, which is the main like central place for beer.
And that's pretty big.
It is.
So that should be okay.
Yes,
and then you kind of have to head out, and you can congregate still, but it needs to be outside of the space outside.
Yeah, which makes sense, but like it's tough. So
it is.
It's like that's one of our biggest values is community, and so it's kind of hard to tell people like you got to leave and you can't stay and talk. So.
Well, at least maybe they can go outside and still keep those conversations going, you know?
Right, right.
Well, so that's kind of how worship. Now, is that a big change? What did it used to be? Was it obviously there's more singing beforehand?
Right. So we do about 2 to 3 songs before, and then have the message in like 2 to 3 songs at the end. So like you're just your typical worship service.
And so you basically kind of cut the front end and replace it with this contemplative time.
Right.
I think that's a really cool idea. I think, especially in Christianity, one of the big things we've lost, and that I don't even do very well, if at all, is this idea of like almost meditation.
Right.
Not in terms of like a, I don't know, Eastern cultic kind of thing, but the idea of, thinking about what the Lord is doing and focusing on that. All right, let me throw you this one. Let's just say tomorrow there's a vaccine.
Right.
Somehow I think it'd be even more of a miracle if everyone was cool with the vaccine.
Yes, amen to that.
But if they all do it, everyone takes the vaccine tomorrow.
Yeah.
You have common worship. Do you leave the contemplative time in? How would you change it back, or would you change it back?
Like the more and more that we've done it every week, like I fell in love with it. So it's been honestly like mind changing for me, because like I'm the type of guy like says like 3 songs at the beginning, like the typical like how service goes. But it's like it's kind of uncomfortable at first, but like I feel like it's good to be pushed outside of our comfort zones. With worship.
So you think, and again, this obviously we're not setting policy here, but if it happened tomorrow, you think you'd leave it?
I think so.
That's awesome. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool
for the time being, at least.
Yeah. So all right, we talked about how worship's changed, and we've kind of already answered this, but just to go back, how have things stayed the same? How have things with common worship remained the same through COVID?
Right, like. We still have people showing up and still people wanting to desire to be met with the presence of the Lord. And so worship in that sense has not changed, and it will never change.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's how it stayed the same in my eyes.
Yeah.
So
do you think, and that doesn't have to be, do you think that what's the vibe of common worship right now? Our students, is there more of a desire to be there? Is it about the same? Is it lessened due to the stress? Is it, how do things feel in the room or in the outside?
Right. So like another core value of common worship is rest. And so I feel like common worship has been such a central hub for people to come and just rest in the presence of the Lord, because all the anxiety that is outside of those doors. And so, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. All right. Any things with the regulation? And again, it makes sense to me. I'm thankful that there are places like Barry that are keeping things close to the chest and that are playing it safe. I think a lot of places, unfortunately, are not doing a good job. We won't name names, obviously, but I'm thankful that Barry's doing as good a job as they are, and I'm thankful for all the universities in Rome that seem to be taking some steps. But are there things? Is there frustration when it comes to this? And then how do you deal with that frustration?
Yeah.
So is there frustration, and how do you deal with that?
Right. So I think one of the biggest things that I can get frustrated with is the restrictions. Because like
any particulars or?
So one recently they've like placed on us is like the worship leaders, like everyone has to wear masks, even the worship leaders, which is like when you're singing and like really leading worship, it's really hard to sing with a mask on.
No kidding. Wow. So, well, one, for you to pass out, but two, like, okay. So all right. Yeah, I can see how that could be frustrating.
Right. Because like they keep like switching back and forth, like going off of like the level of cases that vary, like, which I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to matter that much. But for the worship leaders, at least, like everyone else needs to wear masks.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? How do you process that? Or do you just kind of put your head down and go? Like, what does that look like for you?
Right. Like, I think it's just like, it is uncomfortable. And I think like pushing through that discomfort, like, and knowing that it's for a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would agree. I think that's, as long as they can, as long as the people listening can hear you and understand what you're saying, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understand that completely. As well as, I think with Christianity, one of the things that COVID has done is it's really pushed through like a lot of the fluff of Christianity, and it's allowed us to really kind of grit our teeth and push through some, which you don't want to live in that all the time, but at the same time, it does help you grow, I think.
Definitely.
So kind of speaking of that, the last thing, what are some ways, even in this time of chaos and pandemic and regulations and all these different things, what are some ways that you've seen God move on campus or in your worship setting, even amidst these restrictions or during this time?
Right. It's kind of like going like off of what I was saying earlier, just about the rest aspect of Common. And it was last Thursday actually, and I probably had the most stressful week of this semester that I can think of. Like just papers, tests, projects, exams, all you can think of was just like dumped on me at the last second. And then everything with the election, that just finishing up, I was feeling very heavy. And I got there, and I wasn't leading that night, so I was in the congregation, and like just the Holy Spirit just dumped down in that place, and like just the peace that brought. Like yes, there's all these different things going on outside, but like the Lord is here and He's moving. So
that's cool. I think especially as worship leaders and pastors, we think, okay, how's the Lord working in other people's lives? What's the Lord doing for the sheep? You know, what's going on with them? Yeah. But we often forget that like the number one reason the Lord put us in ministry was because this is how He's going to affect us, right? This is how He's going to work on us. Well, Jansen, kind of last thing here. We've talked about Common Worship. I've mentioned Common Worship a little bit. For any students who are listening, maybe they're on Barry's campus and they don't have a place to get plugged in yet. Can you just tell us a little bit about Common Worship itself?
Yeah, so Common Worship was started about 3 years ago by a guy named Ben Walker. He's graduated now. Yeah. But it's pretty much a grassroots ministry. Just like, honestly, we go around every Thursday to a different location on campus, and we have different worship leaders. We have different speakers that get up and share their testimony about what the Lord's doing in their lives. And yeah, like it's just such an awesome community of believers, and we worship the Lord and really just seek Him. So
that's awesome. That sounds like a good goal.
Yeah.
Let me back up. When does it meet? And then how can I find out if I'm a student? Like, how can I kind of figure out where you guys are meeting?
Right. So it happens every Thursday at 8:00 p.m. And honestly, we have a Instagram account.
Okay.
But I think it's common.worship. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
What we'll do is if you can send us that Instagram address, and then we'll put that in with the podcast so people can access it and message you guys. Does that work?
That'd be so cool.
That cool? Awesome. Well, man, Jansen, this has been great. Dude, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
For more information on this topic, message us on Instagram at PVN College. Listen to the PVN College podcast through Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Watch this podcast on Instagram TV at PVN College or on our YouTube page, Pleasant Valley North. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.